Welcome to this confessional story of George Gurdjieff, a 19th century mystic. He was a part philosopher, part hypnotist, part composer. He shocked, provoked, and transformed everyone who crossed his path. Today we're listening to his life story from his own perspective. If these are the kinds of explorations that call to your soul, please consider subscribing to this channel. We are dedicated to diving deep into the greatest minds of human history. Now, without any further delay, let's listen to George Gurdjieff's life and wisdom. You believe you are awake, you believe you choose, you feel you are. But look within and tell me, is that voice your master or merely the loudest cog in a machine you did not build? We sleepwalk through our precious days, convinced of our wakefulness. I spent my life trying to hear the alarm clock that might jolt us, even briefly, from this profound collective slumber. My beginning was not remarkable. A small town, cradled by mountains that felt like ancient, silent watchers. My father, a carpenter, was also a storyteller. His hands, rough from wood, could shape tales that made the air shimmer. He spoke of saints and tricksters, of worlds beyond the visible. But it was his silence sometimes that taught me more. A deep, thoughtful quiet, as if listening to a melody only he could hear. My mother's faith was a warm hearth, comforting yet confining. Even then, I sensed a tension, the solid world of wood and bread, and the whispering world of spirit and story. I felt pulled, not by a grand destiny, but by a quiet, persistent question. Why is everything as it is? Why do we repeat, like clockwork, the same joys, the same sorrows? It felt like living inside a beautifully painted egg, sensing, but not seeing, the vastness outside. So I left, not with fury, but with a deep thirst. I sought answers where whispers promised understanding, monasteries clinging to cliffsides, scholars in dusty rooms, villages where dances seemed to speak an older language. I became a collector, not of objects, but of ideas. I studied sacred texts, yes, but also the movement of a shepherd's hands, the rhythm of a blacksmith's hammer, the strange trance of a dervish whirling. I saw patterns, everywhere patterns, in the stars, in the seasons, in the way a man sighs after disappointment. People spoke of freedom, yet their actions were as predictable as the sunrise. They were moved, I saw clearly, by forces they did not comprehend. Habits, fears, desires flaring up like uncontrolled fires. They blamed fate, God, others, never seeing the puppeteer within their own mechanical nature. This was my first chilling realization. Man is asleep. He reacts, he rarely acts. Understanding the sleep was only the first step. The harder task was seeing the intricate machinery keeping us asleep. I observed myself ruthlessly. Why did anger flare so quickly? Why did certain flattery soften me? Why did fatigue make the world seem so bleak? I discovered I was not one, but many. A committee of eyes, each clamoring for control. The dutiful son, the proud seeker, the greedy merchant, the lustful man, the pious ascetic. They all lived within me, shifting like sand in the wind. There was no captain on this ship. It drifted. This fragmentation, this lack of a true central I, was the core of the sleep. We identify with whichever I is loudest at the moment. The hurt child, the vengeful partner, the ambitious worker, believing that is our whole self. It is a profound illusion, the masterwork of our sleeping state. We are houses divided and therefore weak. Knowledge without application is dead. Seeing the sleep was agony unless I could find a way out, a way to wake up, even for moments. I sought shocks, deliberately. Comfort was the enemy of awakening. I placed myself in difficult journeys, among strange customs, in situations demanding every ounce of presence. I learned languages not just to communicate, but to think differently, to disrupt my automatic patterns. I took on roles, healer, merchant, even fool, not for disguise alone, but to see what different masks revealed about the wearer beneath. Could I remain aware while bargaining fiercely? Could I observe my own fear while facing genuine danger? This was the struggle, to remember oneself while life happened. It was exhausting, often humiliating. The sleeping self fights fiercely to maintain its comfortable oblivion. It prefers the dream. The path crystallized not in a temple, but amidst the messy reality of people. I began to gather others, not as disciples, but as fellow travelers lost in the same dream. The methods evolved from this shared struggle. How to create the necessary shock. How to make someone see their own machinery. Ordinary situations became the laboratory. Here is a secret, rarely grasped. Sometimes my most baffling or seemingly outrageous actions were deliberate experiments, mirrors held up to the sleeping souls around me. If I appeared greedy or inconsistent, it was often to provoke a reaction that would reveal their inner mechanisms, their judgment, their outrage, their blind obedience, their hidden greed mirroring mine. Did I miscalculate the price of wine? Perhaps. Or perhaps I wished to see who would complain bitterly, who would pay silently with resentment, who would laugh, and who might, just might, wonder why it mattered so much. The friction, the discomfort, that was the point. Smooth sailing never woke a sleeper. Awakening demanded more than thought. It required the whole being. This became the cornerstone. Conscious labor and intentional suffering. Not the random toil and pain life throws at us, which we endure mechanically, complaining or numbing ourselves. No. Conscious labor is effort undertaken with awareness, specifically to develop what is weak, forcing the mind to focus when it wants to wander, making the body work when it wants to rest, observing emotion without being drowned by it. Intentional suffering is perhaps the most misunderstood. It is voluntarily bearing the discomfort that arises from this conscious effort and from confronting the petty, ugly truths about oneself, the jealousy, the vanity, the laziness one usually hides even from oneself. It's suffering the death of cherished illusions. This voluntary friction, this intentional struggle against one's own gravity, generates the heat needed for inner change. It is the alchemy of the soul. The burden of partial awakening is immense. To see the sleep in others, especially those you care for, and to be often powerless to break it. This brings a profound loneliness. My own failures were constant companions, moments of weakness, lapses into mechanicalness, words spoken in ego, not essence. There was a boy, once, sick with a fever medicine couldn't touch. I sat with him, pouring every ounce of conscious will, every technique I knew, into a desperate effort to help. He died, not because I lacked knowledge, perhaps, but because I lacked the being. My will was strong, yes, but was it pure? Was it truly free from the desire for success, for recognition as a healer? The grief was sharp, not just for the child, but for my own insufficiency. This is the hidden cost. The clearer your vision becomes, the more you perceive your own distance from the ideal, and the suffering inherent in the human condition. It can crush you unless you transform that weight into even greater intentional effort. Now, the light grows softer. The body, this complex instrument I have used, sometimes clumsily, sometimes well, is winding down. Have I succeeded? I cannot say. I see the sleep still everywhere, thick as fog, but I also see flickers, moments where someone remembers themselves, where a spark of genuine consciousness flares against the darkness. A student truly struggles with a difficult task, not for reward, but to master their own impatience. Someone sees their own mechanical reaction and, for an instant, chooses differently. These moments are my vindication. They are tiny candles lit in a vast, sleeping tomb. They prove it is possible. So, I leave you with this as a whispered possibility. You are asleep. You live in a dream. But within you, buried deep beneath the layers of habit and noise, lies the potential for wakefulness. It demands everything: relentless self-observation, conscious effort against your deepest inertia, the courage to face your own emptiness without flinching. It is a path of friction, not comfort.